social media pages that we should be up on here shortly. Twitter might be finally having one of those issues that I've been wondering about. But in any case, if you're off with us on all the pages and all the reasons we are up on all those pages in order to make it so that if anyone is having issues, well, you definitely got other ways to go about it here. And we definitely got a lot to talk about today. So however you may be tuning in, be it on here, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or over on our various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. You are definitely in the right place to continue having, well, our mission anyway, talking about the things that affect us here in the borderland and discussing them like no one else is going to. Like, sure, other people can talk about these things. This is not a kind of gatekeeping moment, but let's just say that the stakes are different for the people who live, reside, work, however you're going through here. If you're on the road going through this area or do so regularly, like, sure, if you're just kind of passing through, yeah, maybe an interesting diversion for you to think about. But for those that consistently deal with these issues, well, we got a lot of them here, and a few of them going on today. More feedback, so to speak, about what is going to be happening with the end of Title 42, and, well, let's just call it some expectations and, well, being worried about what actually happens next with some familiar names, previous guests on the show talking about that from the city of El Paso perspective, as well as some interesting priorities, as much as the Texas legislative session is kind of looming at this point about what may potentially be happening and what the priorities are going to be. The priorities being sussed out right now, as much as we have kind of embarked on what should be done, what the things are going to be wanting to be done ahead of it. The leadership here. I mean, the governor has quite a lot of outsized power to set things, but really the lieutenant governor has a lot of power, and if the priorities align or not, could really end up, well, defining this upcoming session, among other things. We have Ida Beza-Gardner joining us over on the social media. Thank you. Hello, and hand wave to you as well. And then, of course, a lot of local questions that, well, relate to the governor's mansion, and we'll certainly get into that here, but had a chance to sit down earlier with a retired El Paso District Judge, Luis Aguilar, who has both experience on the bench as well as in previous incarnations of leadership within the actual district attorney's office here in town. So perspective on what is needed, what comes next, and what some likelihoods are. And yes, get a little bit more into some of those names, but more likely a lot of perspective there. And a couple other questions coming up here, including Louis Pinato and John Brazelton, pointing out, yes, okay, we're going to try to talk about local things as we always do, but mentioning one significant one there about, yeah, polls close in Georgia in 1 hour. And counting, I mean, some dire predictions there, but let's just see how the race goes here. There's a lot of eyes nationally on it. So we also have Eric von Holstein-Rathlow giving you a thumbs up, going for that today. Thank you for tuning in, as well as Austin Redfern there. Was up to you as well. Again, I got to find one of those audio clips from, again, was that like late 90s, early 2000s? Anyway, I mean, yeah, it might be days before that full result is known here. We'll see if anyone's willing to contend in that race, but I'm not going to hold my breath. It's way too many times that I think about holding my breath and end up realizing that I'm just going to pass out and just wait for it to resolve itself here. That feels like one of them, even though there is a lot of bated breath, I am sure. In any case, also talking about, again, the district attorney's office. More speculation, I will freely admit, is certainly a part of this, but there's a lot more to get into here. But let's get into one of the major subjects. Again, the end of Title 42. We got a lot of deadlines going on right now. I mean, we got holiday shopping deadlines, declaration, but this is one of those another one of those kind of bated breath situations, even if there are some indicators that we can look at here. Again, the El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis dashboard still gives a decent overview of information here. And Ida Beza-Gardner including updating that. No, she did not end up winning her race in that case here, but thanks for speaking to us about it and being frank and forthright in the issues here. I think that always ends up being a help in any case here, so do appreciate that, and thanking for the vote as well, as a question asked by Louis Pinato. But when it comes to the actual, now, some other sitting representatives, particularly those on city council, interesting response into the impending end of Title 42. Again, a lot of those numbers about recent averages holding out either just below high water marks or kind of plateauing at the moment. At the moment, we'll see what actually changes with that, and still no updates on the actual amount of reimbursements being sought here, but a very interesting quote, title from our John Brazelton pointed out that Biden was 70 miles away from the border today, couldn't make the trip. Yeah, still open invitation on this program for them to come by here. Would love to see him. Love to have a chat with him. Not going to hold my breath on that one either. But interesting title from the article from our news partners there at KFOX 14. El Paso's deputy city manager says there is no way to be fully prepared for the end of Title 42. Interesting, I guess, diverging perspective from the we'll be ready for it kind of thing that has been said both previously and somewhat more recently that I've always had, I guess, maybe a dubious look to. It feels a little bit too like bring it on, which is, yeah, I don't feel like that's a good standpoint to take on it either here. But specifically, again, our news partners there talking with Deputy City Manager Mario D'Agostino and him saying, quote, "It's not a good state. I mean, we could see up to thousands a day passing through our community, and that nobody can keep up with that. There's no number of shelters you could have for that. It's going to take an all-out effort and a lot that is going to come on the federal government on what they can do to help decompress our region in our area." So, yeah, frankly, that's my expectation. So I feel like it's at least maybe reasonably based, because the idea of there being, maybe get stockpile of supplies you want, all the people on standby that you want. But the fact of the matter is that we are going to be probably seeing, I mean, there are already expectations in place. I mean, even during the that interesting enforcement of the south of the border area, one of the camps that has been in Ciudad Juarez has happened, that was last week or the week before, I do believe, that there was already talking about we're just waiting for Title 42. Like that narrative is already existing there, and that expectation of what comes next. So, okay, from this point, what I'd like to see from the federal government is a very clear, like, here is what is coming. Because frankly, all of these questions that we keep having about what happens next, what's coming, what is the expectation, what are you all going to be doing, considering that these are federal prerogatives. Like, sure, we need to do preparations on our own on this end. That should always be a part of it. But the fact that we're kind of feeling like who's driving the bus at this point in time when it comes to the policy here, or are we just kind of letting it coast? Yeah, it's uncomfortable for me, and I'm sure for plenty others, particularly those involved with this, including, again, Mario D'Agostino there at the City of El Paso, Deputy City Manager there, based on some of his statements, mentioning some of the places, saying as we await monies, including the more aid and reimbursements that have been sought from the federal government, saying, so as we await those monies, our city's welcome center, any supplemental transportation, and of course emergency sheltering is on standby. Specifically, Jorge Rodriguez quoted there, the emergency management coordinator. So we got a lot to be prepared for, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be, again, to get saying a direct quote from him, no way to be prepared for it, because now we have a lot of expectation with it. And as much as, again, we got that December 20th, 21st date coming up here, making sure that, again, I don't know if making sure is an applicable phrase here, but trying to make sure as best as possible that we can handle what may come. I don't know. It seems like that might be going slightly out the window there in any case. But hopefully we'll see some differences or some mitigation. I guess that's that last part about needing to alleviate the area. I'm not sure how much of that is truly going to be possible, given the, again, implications of the end of Title 42, but hopefully possible in any case here. But with that, again, more speculation, just interesting input coming from the city government on this point here. Let's go ahead and take that first break of this hour right now. Again, a whole lot more discussion about our local situations, including the district attorney's office. Not trying to just keep rehashing the potential list, even though we still have some discussion of those names, of those potentialities coming up here, but also a lot more of what needs to be done, and realistically looking at some of the timelines, not even just of selection of the next district attorney, the possibilities there, but of what they're really able to accomplish within a couple of years. Obviously, it's possible to leave your mark on the office within a couple of years, but trying to do something substantive in the potential rebuilding that might be necessary is another question entirely. And frankly, some of the questions end up running straight into, well, that next election. Even those 2 years out, those questions definitely come up. So that's just a little bit of what we're talking more about, as well as more of those legislative priorities that we will also be discussing. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in, including Louis Pinato, Stephen Christopher, Eric McNabb, Flaco Jimenez, Ion Grimm, and John Brazelton, Eric Von Holstein Rathlow, Austin Redfern, and more. But we got a lot more to come after this. Phone lines a little bit later, as we usually do. But in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, coming up after this, more about the DA situation and specifically what comes next, what substantive steps are going to be needed and a whole lot more as we talk with a, well, definitely person and very much knowledgeable about the situations or previous experiences. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an injury accident blocking the right lane gateway east at the Sumac Coral Drive exit. Stop and go traffic on Global Reach southbound from the spur down to Montana. 21-minute delays right now. An injury accident in Zaragoza at Rich Beam is causing a backup all the way back to Tierra Este with 10-minute delays. Police and medical on the scene there. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. It's pro time because at Lowe's it's Provember. Over 30 days to save big. Full of more inventory, more Lowe's MVP's bonus points, and more of the deals you deserve. Because it always pays to be a pro at Lowe's. Save all Provember long.
If you run a business, you might feel that advertising is more confusing than ever. But it doesn't have to be. At iHeart, we're built to help your business. With 9 out of 10 Americans listening to us, just like you are now, we can give you access to your next customers and the tools, strategies, data, and creative to reach them. We're America's #1 audio company, and it all starts from a conversation. So let us help you adjust your plans to improve your business and costs. Visit iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Safe gun storage is the duty of every gun owner. Just follow these 3 steps. 1. Store firearms unloaded and secured using a storage device. 2. Store and lock ammunition safely. And 3. Keep others from getting access at all times.
There is a safe gun storage option for every budget. To learn more about safely storing firearms, go to safegunstorage.texas.com for more information. Let's keep them safe, Texas. Brought to you by the Texas Department of Public Safety.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
At EasyCater, food for work is our thing. Maybe that's why we get orders from 93% of Fortune 500 companies. So what's up with the other 7%?
So sorry the food is late.
You should order through EasyCater. Professionally delivered on time and as ordered.
Totally would, but the E is broken on my keyboard.
Just get IT to fix it.
Totally would. Can't type the word help.
Why don't all companies order through EasyCater? Who knows? Order 24/7 from over 95,000 restaurants on EasyCater.com. EasyCater, food for work. That's our thing.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, whatever works best for you. And able to tune in, chime in, see the show, and look at the guests that we have on is the best place for you to do so. So getting more to those and phone calls a little bit later in the show, as we usually do. But joining us here in studio right now, we are joined by Luis Aguilar, retired district judge here in El Paso. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely happy to have you on and visit with you on a subject that we have talked about previously, but of course we have had quite a lot of updates, particularly in this last week, whenever it comes to, well, court cases and the district attorney's office. Now, for anyone, again, under that particularly large and soundproof rock out there, we have, of course, had the resignation of the district attorney come down as expected there to be by a little bit later this month, not quite halfway through. And, of course, a lot of speculation around replacement and things like that going on. But really, this is not a simple question, but it's the best one I can think to start off with. Given the resignation, given the circumstances we're in, kind of what happens now and what is next, both for the district attorney herself and for the office of the district attorney overall?
And again, this is just my own personal opinion.
Absolutely.
What happens? Excuse me. No telling. But first and foremost, the resignation has been submitted.
Mm-hmm.
The governor accepted it. Next thing that is going to occur is the governor will appoint an individual to come and complete the remainder of the 2-year term for the district attorney's office of El Paso. As far as Ms. Rosales is concerned, until that person is appointed and sworn in, she will continue to be the district attorney.
And of course, there is the interim that has also been appointed, her first ADA essentially. And once we get past deadlines, if no action has been taken, but there are also some essentially state statutory deadlines that the governor has to comply with as well, about 8 days around that date as well. So we got some timelines that are in place here, but even more existentially, it's not simply as, sure, there is the very basic point of what happens next, who's going to be in place, who's going to be running it. Questions remain, but of how that process goes. But even that is not so simple a question, because we have further questions that come on of next, what happens in dealing with an office like this? So you have both experience on the bench as a judge dealing with the district attorneys in their own rights and ways and knowing what you need to expect from them. But then also you've previously been in the district attorney's office yourself here as an ADA. So when it comes to actually dealing with an office, particularly like this here, the situation that we are in of a couple of years of, frankly, upheaval. It's been going on, in retrospect being 2020, there were maybe a lot of different points at times when it could have been pointed to that, hey, something is maybe not right. Something does not seem to be working that well when it came to the resignations or the case dismissals that came up, and now culminating, of course, with then the dismissal trial and then the resignation coming up here. It kind of, and again, retrospect looks like there may have been a line that could have been drawn through all of these, though at any point in time would be hard to identify. So just seeing that and kind of in retrospect, what needs to be done now just for an office like this?
Well, that's one of the most discouraging aspects of this. First and foremost, yes, she tendered her resignation. Yes, the governor accepted it. However, the day-to-day operations is being conducted by her first assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, having been in that position myself in the past, the problem is you cannot set policy for the office, because any day the new guy may be coming and everything you said and all these modifications and changes, they're out the window. And if that's so, in essence, your hands are tied. You just want to keep the office, your head above water, so to speak. But when the new guy comes, he's going to tell you, this is the way we're going to do things, regardless of what the past administration had to say. And if that's not enough, once he starts his policies, his modus operandi, in 2 years, there's going to be an election. And Republicans have not fared very well. In fact, they haven't won in, I don't even know how many decades.
I don't believe, if I'm not mistaken from our news partners there at KFox 14, there has ever been a Republican DA in El Paso.
And again, Steve Simmons was here about 25 years. Jaime Esparza was close to 30. So that takes us past most people's recent memory.
And lifetimes, frankly, here. So, we're getting deep into history with it here, but just knowing what it is with this office, there are some temporary things. Essentially, I would be surprised if anything besides status quo maintained by the interim here, because, again, what else can you do here? But the challenges of then dealing with this, because the district attorney's office can seem monolithic in a lot of ways. You've had, of course, experience inside of it, and I've had some small ways in my own time here, both in reporting and having, frankly, done internships back in my high school days. So a long time ago, but still, there are a lot of different departments and a lot of different things that need to be handled, including, there's different types of cases that are being pursued here, many different formats here, whether it be, the misdemeanors, whether it be, felony cases, whether it be the capital trials. Like, we're also definitely having one of the most looming ones of kind of in the background of all of this, that honestly, this could all be described as a sideshow too for that case. Literally, the cases that we've had progressing in court, and the first public appearance of Iván Rosales, the district attorney, last week was in regards to the August 3rd case. So it's honestly, I would still consider it all of that a sideshow to this case, all of this. But dealing with them in the office. So whoever comes in here, whatever person is appointed by the governor within the next probably couple of weeks or so, if not this week, they're going to have a lot to deal with here. So from your perspective, again, having been with inside and also on the bench dealing with it, what needs to be done for this office now? What kind of challenges are they really going to have to tackle?
In my opinion, I don't think you're going to be able to make any huge changes in the office because there's too many people and you don't have the time. I also think another serious issue that's going to be addressed very shortly here is that if you go out there in the community and try and bring back the successful prosecutors that were in the office, most of them have moved on. They've got their own careers coming back, and they're not coming back for the interim knowing that there's a high probability he won't be there in 2 years. So you don't want to shut down your private practice or give up a good job where you're happy and turn around and be back on the streets in 2 years. And I think that's going to become and prove to be a hindrance to recruiting your experienced prosecutors, your competent prosecutors who were in the office 2 years ago. I'm not sure how many you're going to get back.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Luis Aguilar, retired district judge here in El Paso, talking about some of the circumstances involving the district attorney's office right now as it stands and what's going to come next year. So we're essentially going to be having, kind of way you're describing it, as a caretaker. We got the interim right now, but then essentially be a caretaker who is going to essentially be tasked with doing the best job that they can with essentially limited resources, maybe not totally monetarily. They'll still have the full power of the office, but getting people involved, buy-in, I guess, will be essentially their biggest challenge.
And, you know, if I could use a football analogy, you've seen these when you come in with a quarterback that's not particularly talented, but his job is, in essence, a game manager. Just don't screw it up. Just keep it going. No mistakes. Don't get fancy. Just keep the machine going. And basically, that's what this is going to take, because you're not going to turn that office around in 2 years when the odds are you're not going to be here in 2 years.
So what I think that should be definitely a part of the consideration that the governor has here, but that has been kind of a, well, completely intransparent process at this point in time here, at least publicly. I know that there have been rumblings. I mean, it's been referenced in numerous different local articles about rumblings within the local legal community about what might be the next steps. A few names going around here that we'll probably get into here in just a second, but really the considerations are probably twofold whenever it comes to the governor here, at least the very least, very top level, kind of obvious ones, but still worth discussing. That there are, of course, partisan issues at play here. We talked about that yesterday, that there are even movements within the legislature about the bipartisanship that has existed, about maybe essentially seeing that sunset whenever it comes to committee appointments here, so that it being essentially out of line of that kind of an effort if the governor were to look at essentially outside of his own party for the appointment here. So there's an expectation there that is pretty well baked in. But then also, I got to think that the governor does not want to appoint someone that is then going to fail. I mean, at the very least, be anywhere near the level of what we have seen leading up to a resignation of the office, or potentially worse here. So there has to be not just a totally partisan decision, but at least a very baseline of competency and, well, kind of as we're talking about it, managerial prowess is really what it comes down to, it seems like.
Well, that may be true, but I don't think that we can deny the fact that it will be a Republican. And in El Paso, you're kind of limiting your choices who have prosecutorial background Republican to come in willing to shut down whatever practice you have going there, because most successful attorneys, you're not going to shut down your office for a potential 2-year appointment. It's difficult to start your legal practice. It's difficult to shut it down, and restarting would be difficult. And I can see where that's going to dissuade potential candidates.
So do you think that it might be someone from out of town then?
I doubt it, because I think El Paso is unique in many ways. And I think that you really have to be someone who loves this city, cares about this city, and most importantly, the city. So an outsider, I think, would find it extremely difficult to run this office.
I think that anyone's going to find it difficult to run this office at this point in time here, but point well taken, certainly. Again, guest right now is Luis Aguilar, retired El Paso district judge. You've got to take that next break right now. But coming out of this break, there's a few of those names that have been swirling around. We'll mention at least a couple of those here, but really just kind of what needs to happen next. So stay tuned for more here on Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. Police officials say a 51-year-old man died after a shooting at the Desert Lodge Motel in Las Cruces yesterday afternoon. The shooting happened at a motel located at 1900 West Picacho Avenue at about 4 in the afternoon. Then at 3 this morning, El Paso police responded to a stabbing in Northeast El Paso. Police say a 30-year-old woman was stabbed on the 8600 block of Dyer, just across the street from Colonia Motor Hotel. But on a good note, the weekend of December 3rd brought more than 25,000 people to the plaza downtown, according to the Winterfest coordinator, Diana Cepeda. Winterfest began on November 18th and it ends on January 1st. Winterfest is an El Paso tradition that has been running for more than 30 years, and the city tries to add and expand to it every year. This year, food vendors are operating out of gingerbread house fronts, and there are igloos. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound at Wrestler Drive, a stalled Freightliner is blocking the right shoulder, causing some minor delays. Eastbound Paisano Drive, as you get into the downtown area just before South Santa Fe, an injury accident slowing traffic there. Injury accident in Zaragoza at Rich Beam with police and medical on the scene, and a long backup to Tierra Este with 15-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. After another warm and somewhat windy day, we will see a much quieter night. However, we start off our Wednesday with some areas of patchy fog again before 9 a.m. Then after lunchtime, we'll start to see those showers and thunderstorms rolling in, along with a cold front to bring cooler air. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Enter the Craftsman Days Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes sponsored by Lowe's for a chance to win Craftsman products valued at over $10,000. No purchase necessary. Ends 12/31. Residents of 50 USDC, 18 or older, and age of majority, and have a Lowe's.com account. Void where prohibited. See rules at Lowe'sUltimateGarage.com for entry instructions, odds, prices, etc. Sponsor Lowe's.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer. It can sound a lot like
building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
Or even
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
Be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Hey, I'm Steve Ranella. From the rainforests of Alaska to the coast of Hawaii, I follow trails of all kinds with good friends through wild places. This is our land, and this is our season. Stream the premiere of Meat Eater Season 11 exclusively and free of charge at themeateater.com. And while you're there, find incredible deals on some of my favorite hunting gear from First Light, FHF gear, and Phelps game calls.
Updated COVID vaccines have arrived just in time to offer protection against the original COVID virus and Omicron. And that's the moment we've all been waiting for. Find updated COVID vaccines for everyone 5 and older at vaccines.gov. We can do this. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Enter the Craftsman Days Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes sponsored by Lowe's for a chance to win Craftsman products valued at over $10,000. No purchase necessary. Ends 12/31. Residents of 50 USDC, 18 or older, and age of majority, and have a Lowe's.com account. Void where prohibited. See rules at Lowe'sUltimateGarage.com for entry instructions, odds, prices, etc. Sponsor Lowe's. This report is sponsored by Lowe's.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, whichever works best for you so you can tune into the show, chime in, add your 2 cents as you see fit safely. We'll have those phone lines open a little bit later for those of you out in radio land, but don't worry, we'll keep talking about the things that affect us here in the borderland. And so continuing to join us here, talk further about that, still have Luis Aguilar, retired district judge, here in the studio with us. Thanks for sticking around with us today.
My pleasure.
So, continuing discussion about the DA's office, replacement, all of the the whole solar system of issues swirling around this central point here. There's been a few names that have been mentioned, have been coming up in common parlance, and even been making, let's call it, pseudo public appearances along with this here about potentials. I mean, honestly, a lot of this, even some of the other reporting from our news partners, has been a lot of reading of the tea leaves, because there have been no definitive public statements coming out of, well, Austin or the governor's mansion on who potential replacements are. No short lists, nothing like that at this point, at least when we're recording here. But there have been a few names getting kicked around, so to speak. The El Paso legal community, as has been kind of nebulously referred to, having a few, maybe not darling names, but more likely. But again, it is a whole lot of divination at this point, as opposed to, oh yeah, no, they're on the list kind of situation here. And at least one of the common ones that you have technically a bit of history with, Bill Hicks, if only because y'all traded seats at one point.
That is correct. I did.
And when it comes to the 243rd District Court here, so he has previously been appointed by Abbott here, and there have been a couple of the names, including other Abbott appointees, such as Jeff Alley comes to mind here. But again, one of the real problems, and this kind of runs straight into then the August 3rd case, is that given the timelines we're on, given the upheaval and the potentials for delay of prosecution. I mean, one of the things that goes in the background here is that we are looking at the federal trial proceeding 2024. Right. And given the fact that, I mean, some of the argumentation, I mean, we don't really know what's going on at the district attorney's office currently, but I mean, some of the public statements coming out of, Judge Samadrano and his court has been that there has been nothing done during this administration in here. That much has been said publicly, and one of the reasons the gag order ended up getting put into place here is his concern about quote-unquote grandstanding. So given the fact that it is seemingly very likely from the evidence that we have that there is going to having to be at very least starting, if not from scratch, from pretty close to square one when it comes to the state prosecution of this trial, is that enough time to do it before the federal one kicks off, really?
Practically impossible. Impossible. And the problem we're going to have here, these names being kicked around, the one you mentioned, I find it would be extremely difficult for a person who does not have prosecution experience to come in, because not only will it be difficult if you don't understand the intricacies of all the different divisions within the district attorney's office. Keep in mind, there are slotted 80 attorneys, 80 assistant DAs are allocated for that office. So you have to have an understanding of the office, how it operates, and particularly the departments, particularly screening. You have to understand the screening, which is the process when the police make an arrest, take you to jail, the DAs are next. You're going to indict him. You're going to decline the prosecution. You need to get this thing ready. You need to get it assigned and get your prosecutors on it. They need to review it. And it's an understanding. And not only do you need to have some experience, whoever's appointed, you're going to be coming into a mess. This is a real mess. It's going to take a really hardworking, experienced prosecutor to get this thing back on track.
And frankly, the screening process has been, that was frankly what was led up to the whole removal trial, at least one of the aspects of it. There was also, of course, the previous attempted capital murder trial, I guess would be the part of it, before it was dismissed for prosecutorial misconduct on that part of it. That was, of course, how the actual removal complaint and petition came about here when it came to the local defense attorney filing that. But the other part of it was, again, the dismissals, I'll call it roughly about 1,000 cases ended up being dismissed from the public defender's office. I think it's like 900 and change, but just for simple measures, calling it 1,000. Of those being essentially kind of, I guess, the way I've been thinking about it, kind of a failure of the screening process, and how kind of by the end of it, they were almost turning that process into the screening process by those cases as they were brought up. They were then taking action expeditedly on those here. So that's, again, another one of those few points of evidence we have within the office of what has been going on and what might need to be fixed, essentially.
And you got to understand, if experienced prosecutors realize everything starts in screening. That's the intake. That's where it all comes in, and that's where you have your first contact with the case, the district attorney's office. And once the police complete their paperwork and turn it into the DA's office, it's on your watch. That's your responsibility. You need to file the motions. You need to review the court. You need to go up to court and tell the judge what you need or what you don't need. So this is one department, and I understand all the departments are important, grand jury, victim assistance, they're all important, but you cannot have a malfunction down in screening. That will just bottleneck the whole process, and obviously you see what happens.
mean, it's kind of like a fishing boat with the trawler net being not able to haul them in and sort through it here.
Exactly.
You got a giant hole in the net, which is causing these cases to leak out, so to speak, to take the analogy to its logical conclusion there. Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Luis Aguilar, retired El Paso district judge, talking about the circumstances involving, surrounding, and the myriad of issues with the district attorney's office, and particularly what needs to happen next. So getting further in on the August 3rd case, I mean, that is, I would still firmly and strongly argue that all of this, pretty much everything we've talked about, has been a sideshow to that, because that is one of the most important things for not even just that office, but for the consciousness of the people of El Paso. I mean, there's not a person here in town that has not probably been in some way affected by it, either directly, physically, emotionally. I mean, it has affected the consciousness of this community in a variety of ways. And the attention paid to this, I mean, everything, I guess, I basically viewed through the lens of how does it affect this case, all the proceedings that have happened here.
And I couldn't agree with you more. This case, and I spent many years prosecuting and on the bench, and I get it. Horrible crimes happen in the city. But this case, I don't think anyone can deny it's different. This is a very unique case that has struck the consciousness of the city of El Paso. And the sad part is, this was 3 years ago, and I don't see us being any closer to resolution than we were 3 years ago. And unfortunately, since we've agreed, or the courts agreed, to go after the federal prosecution, they're not scheduled for prosecution for another year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on the numerous interviews that I've conducted and been a part of, I cannot stress that all these issues, who said what, who did what, who threatened a witness, who lied, who sent an email, to me, that's an issue for another day. To me, what the focus of this city should be on is, did that defendant kill 23 people at Walmart? Yes or no? Because he's either guilty or he's not guilty. And if he's guilty, what is an appropriate punishment? That should be the only thing we should be talking. And this thing's been going on so long. And here we are arguing about, well, who sent that email? Well, who called who a name? Who threatened who?
I mean, again, these are important questions. I want to get into that here in another second here, but I guess two major questions end up remaining for me here is that on that, I mean, we've of course have the resignation from the office of Yvonne Rosales, but particularly involving these questions that are still related to that case, but they have been of their own separate hearings. We've had attorneys ad litem appointed here. It's gotten its own whole kerfuffle here. Resignation does not necessarily, or really substantially, dispose the district attorney, Yvonne Rosales herself, of potential responsibility or consequences with these sets of hearings, right?
Absolutely correct. Whatever the law enforcement proves, and assuming they're blaming her, or there'll be accountability. But that is a totally separate issue. If there's criminal liability out there for any of these DAs, that's a totally separate issue that has, in essence, nothing to do with the prosecution of the Walmart shooter.
Yeah, essentially it'll turn into its own separate case, so to speak, here.
Absolutely.
Is really what it ends up coming down to here. And then essentially, finally, with this potential, with needing for a replacement of here, with all these challenges in place, I mean, one of the big questions has frankly been if there is going to be a change of venue or not here. It has not been filed as far as I'm aware, and as we've been recording here, but it's been one of those kind of major back of the mind questions that usually in a significant case like this, or where there is community involvement or a lot of talk in the community, there may be that push to have it relocated. What is your perspective on the potential for that in this case?
Well, normally it's requested by the defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that the defense is not seeking a change of venue in this case. That doesn't mean that they cannot change their mind at any point.
Mm-hmm.
Change of venue could be requested by the district attorney's office, or for that matter, the judge could just order it. But to me, I think this is an issue that is still down the road because we haven't done anything. We haven't had our preliminary hearings to determine whether or not we're going to seek that. To me, that would come. There are a tremendous amount of work that you need to do on a capital murder, but the change of venue, I think, is towards the end. It would seem to me that you would address that towards the end because there's much more pressing issues on a capital murder of this magnitude besides where we're going to try it.
Just one of those pressing questions that keeps coming up as we're still dealing with a lot of different issues here with us. Again, joining us here in studio right now has been Luis Aguilar, retired El Paso district judge. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, break down some of these issues, even though there's a lot more to go into, but kind of got to take it day by day with a lot of this.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely happy to have you on here to talk about this. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we will all go, again, open up those phone lines as we usually do at this point during the program. So if you want to call in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an injury accident on eastbound Paisano downtown just before South Santa Fe, slowing traffic. A serious crash Zaragoza at Rich Beam is causing a long backup to Tierra Este with 15-minute delays. Traffic is stopped. Mesa Street northbound for the downtown exits to Desert Boulevard is a 5-minute delay. And watch for an injury accident McRae northbound at Edgemere. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Enter the Craftsman Days Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes sponsored by Lowe's for a chance to win Craftsman products valued at over $10,000. No purchase necessary. Ends 12/31. Residents of 50 USDC, 18 or older, and age of majority, and have a Lowe's.com account. Void where prohibited. See rules at Lowe'sUltimateGarage.com for entry instructions, odds, prices, etc. Sponsor Lowe's.
The Where Were You in 92 podcast brings you back to the year of big butt anthems, achy breaky hearts, and grunge. Take an audio trip back in time to relive the wildest, most eclectic, and controversial 12 months in music through interviews with critics, industry bigwigs, and the artists themselves.
Take me back to a magical time when music was magic, and I had completely burned that to the ground.
Listen to Where Were You in 92 on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes life makes choices for us, so we need to make the most of the choices we do have. If you qualify for Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. This local plan offers supplemental benefits like dental, vision, OTC benefits, and much more. El Paso Health Plus also has programs designed to keep you independent and healthy. You have choices. Choose local. Choose El Paso Health Plus.
Your Social Security disability claim has been denied. In this stressful situation, you aren't alone. John Sipes, attorney at law, can help. If you're between 55 and 65 years old, can no longer work, and have been denied disability benefits by the Social Security Administration, or need help applying, contact John Sipes. Even if you're under 55 and a serious mental or physical impairment prevents you from working, John Sipes is here for you. Get started at ElPasoDisabilityLawyer.com. That's ElPasoDisabilityLawyer.com.
Weather and traffic every 10 minutes.
Keeping you informed on changes in real time.
Take a look here at our text.com. The KFOX 14 Morning News gets you out the door and on the road.
Coverage you can count on.
KFOX 14 Morning News. Download the updated KFOX 14 News app and get our newscast, weather, and traffic live. If you have it, update it. Go to the App Store or Google Play. Then turn on push notifications for weather and news.
Any first responder will tell you never try to beat a train. After braking, it can take a mile for a train to completely stop. A mile. That's also how far a car can be dragged when a train hits it. So when you come to a rail crossing, stop, because trains can't. Paid for by NHTSA.
It's pro time because at Lowe's it's Provember. Over 30 days to save big. Full of more inventory, more Lowe's MVPs bonus points, and more of the deals you deserve. Because it always pays to be a pro at Lowe's. Save all Provember long.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, even if it ends up being definitely a Thunderdome bare-knuckle brawl a lot of the times. Not always, but 4-1 forearm. You don't have to comment, but if you want to add your 2 cents, can pop your more relevant comments up on screen if we have some significant other conversation, including one good one from Eric von Holstein-Rathlow about the potential for other appointments as a temporary the AG, district attorney in this case, but yeah, there's other possibilities. In any case, if you want to get on the line, we do have that phone line open right now. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. a lot to discuss here today. So one other thing I wanted to get to there in the same vein, or I guess slightly different. I mean, a lot of speculation about Austin in our interview. And again, thanks to retired District Judge Luis Aguilar on that. And Eric's question about there saying maybe Abbott might appoint Mr. Aguilar as temporary. I think he meant DA. We were talking about attorney generals as well. So I could understand the confusion there. I'm going to put that as a probably not, given that, well, Aguilar is also a Democrat. And I would be very surprised if Abbott at this point in time, given some of the statewide issues that have been going on, if he would be willing to broach that right now, particularly since there's a bit of a fight, maybe not a fight, some friction, let's call it that until further notice, going on within even the governor's mansion. And does the lieutenant governor have a mansion? Well, if he does, I'm sure there's a lot of interesting messages getting traded back and forth between them, particularly since a very interesting article out, Texas Tribune earlier today. Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick diverged ahead of the legislative session on property taxes and power grid. Now, we're getting into both campaign promises and recent news conferences that, again, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has held, stating his, we talked a little bit about it in previous weeks, about what is his priorities. The 21, I believe it was, actual priorities has going forth. And again, there's maybe not outsized control that has, but it definitely sets a roadmap and is going to be probably managing some expectations for what will actually be addressed in this legislative session. Because as much as, I mean, it's kind of really fascinating. It's a reason I like focusing on the Texas legislature as we do every couple of years, and then kind of focus on every other side of it, is that it's the personalities that come through are fascinating to me, and how even though we're talking about ostensibly the same party, I mean, it might be tempting to think that the Republican Party of Texas has this monolithic control over the legislature, but the personalities are not to be dismissed here, including specifically that of the Speaker of the House, even though Dade Phelan is a little bit more in line than more recent speakers of the House, or the most recent speakers of the House have been before him. He still definitely is interested in the integrity of his chamber and of their vision of it. And so there's not necessarily just a go along to get along, or just, oh, sure, Lieutenant Governor, whatever you want, we'll just let you be the head of our house as well. That's definitely not how they take it. But Dan Patrick's, again, agenda is still probably going to have a large impact, particularly in the Senate. And essentially, it might come down to negotiations between the chambers, as kind of happens not as much in the national legislature within my lifetime, but you get the idea that there might be reconciliation and discussions happening. So a couple of things that Patrick has put down as major priorities are a property tax reform, other serious things involving that, again, estimated $27 billion potential surplus, more to be coming there. And okay, Eric, correcting a DA, not AG, but again, we're talking about AGs as well, so I can understand entirely. But also power grid fixes. Essentially, Patrick has been saying that there definitely need to be more work being done on the power grid in Texas in order to keep business investors, to keep these profit levels, to keep the surplus that we're seeing coming from those tax amounts and the excise taxes, fees, those kind of things in place, while also still wanting to lower property taxes. And Abbott, I would say, is more on board with the property tax parts. I mean, there have been some promises, including to the lead up to the election, of using maybe half of the total, whatever the surplus is, towards property tax relief. And I would still see that as a strong potential, maybe not in contravention of what Patrick has said, but you got to remember, Governor Greg Abbott has essentially said, no, we fixed the power grid. That was a major campaign sticking point, particularly in responses to, of course, the then Democratic nominee, Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, seeking to challenge him and point out that and really make that a pretty big point during the election, among many, many other things. It kept coming up in any case. And so I think essentially Abbott really wants to just put that one to bed. Not to saying that there couldn't be more fixes or reform made, but as a, no, we fixed it, so we don't need to really focus on it. Maybe do some maintenance, do some structural changes, sure, but no, we fixed the grid. And that's a line that I'm going to see him, and his other analysis also coming, unwilling to abandon even now, even if he does have pretty well secured his next term of office. And, he's in office, obviously, but not much contravention. I mean, he pretty handily won this election as well, even based on the many challengers. He has fended off a lot here, and I think he doesn't want to see this one brought back up. That's more my reading, but the potential friction, because particularly, Lieutenant Governor has more control during the session. But you got to remember that the ability to call special sessions, that power lies entirely within the governor's hands. So I don't think we'll have another year of the legislature like we did 2020 when it just never stopped. Okay, it did eventually stop, but it's supposed to be the first half of the year and not much more. The odd special session, maybe 2, but not the feels like umpteen that we had. No, it wasn't actually that many, but you get the idea that it's just it's the legislative version of the song that never ends. In any case, those are some of the potential frictions, potential issues that I'm not sure will come to actual arguments or blows or anything, but may lead to more consternation coming out of the State House and Governor's Mansion and Lieutenant Governor's apartment, condo. I don't know. What do we call that one? In any case, got to take that next break now. Get to the top of the hour again. We are taking those phone calls, a couple queuing up on the line, and we'll get to those here at the top of the hour. But if you also want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back out for this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an injury accident on eastbound Paisano downtown just before South Santa Fe, slowing traffic. A serious crash Zaragoza at Rich Beam is causing a long backup to Tierra Este with 15-minute delays. Traffic is stopped. Mesa Street northbound for the downtown exits to Desert Boulevard is a 5-minute delay. And watch for an injury accident McRae northbound at Edgemere. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, Sean Hannity here from my dear friends at Lone Star Transfer. I love these folks. You know, with all of us traveling so differently these days, timeshares, they're kind of becoming a thing of the past. Now, if you're stuck in one, you don't have to be. Our friends at Lone Star Transfer, they can help you. Now, with skyrocketing assessments and maintenance fees, still owning a timeshare is very risky. And for over a decade, Lone Star Transfer, they have successfully helped thousands and thousands of owners legally, permanently get out of their burdensome timeshare. They have an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. Now, Lone Star Transfer is a family-owned company. They have earned their reputation for delivering first-class customer service. They're going to guarantee the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation, 833-594-0075. That's 833-594-0075 or online at lonestartransfer.com.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by iHeartRadio, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The jury is returning a verdict in the Trump Organization tax fraud trial. Liz Warner reports.
After a day and a half of deliberations, a jury has found the Trump Organization guilty on all counts in its New York tax fraud trial. Prosecutors accused the former president's company of avoiding taxes by paying personal expenses for top executives and giving them compensation without reporting it over a period of 15 years. Donald Trump himself wasn't charged, is not guilty of any wrongdoing, and has called the trial politically motivated.
The market is continuing its sell-off to start the week. Fears of recession grow around Wall Street as major CEOs like JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon warned inflation could send the economy into one. All eyes will be on the Federal Reserve's meeting next week to see if it will slow down its rate hiking race. President Biden is highlighting his administration's effort to boost U.S. semiconductor manufacturing.
The United States is better positioned than any other nation to lead the world economy in the years ahead if we keep our focus.
On Tuesday, the president visited the site of the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company in Phoenix, Arizona, which recently got a boost from the recent passage of the CHIPS and Science Act. Biden declared that American manufacturing is back as the company announced new investments. The company plans to increase investment in Arizona from $12 billion to $40 billion, the largest investment in Arizona history and one of the largest in U.S. history. Officials at the University of Idaho say up to 40% of its student body isn't on campus following the murders of 4 students. The school's executive director of communications told Fox News 60 to 75% of students are physically in the town of Moscow in the northwest part of the state. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The man accused in a New York City mass subway shooting back in April is trying to get his trial moved out of New York. Scott Pringle reports.
Prosecutors say Frank James will get a fair trial, and there will be a huge pool to choose a jury from, and therefore the trial should remain in Brooklyn. James is trying to get the trial moved out of state, with his defense claiming he won't get a fair trial because of the bombardment of media coverage of the subway shooting. James is facing charges of committing a terrorist attack on a mass transit system. Prosecutors say he shot 10 people on a Brooklyn rush hour subway train on April 12th. Prosecutors presented even more evidence yesterday against James.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's niece is being blamed for having a meltdown on a plane. The New York Post reports Shannon Epstein allegedly acted aggressively on an early morning flight from New Orleans to New Jersey on Thanksgiving Day. The paper also says she shouted, "Do you know who I am?" to responding officers. In their report, cops said Epstein displayed behavior consistent with drinking alcohol and consuming drugs. They're not in Kansas anymore, but they're still in Tampa. Trey Thomas explains.
Most of the residents of Tampa, Kansas are enjoying a free 4-day vacation in the Florida city of the same name. Santiago Corriata with Tampa's tourism agency, Visit Tampa Bay, says it's a gesture of goodwill for the holidays and a way to get some publicity in the Midwest. Southwest Airlines and local hotels covered airfare and lodging for the Kansas town's approximately 100 residents.
A Texas rabbit is lucky to be alive after recently hitching a ride last week. A woman took her SUV in last week for an oil change, and after the technician pulled the vehicle into the bay, he found a live rabbit under the hood. The rabbit and the employees startled each other. Then the rabbit hopped out and got away in the town of Cibolo. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Enter the Craftsman Days Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes sponsored by Lowe's for a chance to win Craftsman products valued at over $10,000. No purchase necessary. Ends 12/31. Residents of 50 USDC, 18 or older, and age of maturity, and have a Lowe's.com account. Void where prohibited. See rules at Lowe'sUltimateGarage.com for entry instructions, odds, prices, etc. Sponsor Lowe's.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer. It can sound a lot like,
"Building looks mediocre. Designs need a do-over."
or even,
"Install a roller coaster? Okay."
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
It's the free iHeartRadio app, and it's loaded up with holiday cheer. From Mariah's Christmas anthem to classic crooners, iHeart has your Christmas playlist. Just tap playlists and then tap holiday for a huge selection.
Run, run, Rudolph.
The only app that gives you everything you love for free. Some might call it a Christmas miracle. Download the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts this holiday season.
iHeartRadio.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here over on Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, a lot of ways you can get at us, add your 2 cents on the show, and just get involved with everything that we do. There are quite a lot of them. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to get your 2 cents there, so we have a lot of people doing so and demonstrating beautifully how this whole process works, or at least should, more or less. We'll just call it that way. Including dropping those likes and reacts that we do certainly appreciate, including a few of them here. Let's see. Flaco Jimenez, Amber Banda, Bernadette Bandacol, Ion Grimm, Robbie Flores, Robert Haynes, and Monica Cervantes. Oh, and Ida Beza Gardner. Appreciate that there. And back on the conversation about potential replacements for the district attorney, that speculation that's probably going through here. Eric von Holstein-Rathlow saying Abbott will have a hard time finding a Republican replacement way out here in Democrat-run El Paso. I mean, I think that's at least part of it here, but I'm also adding that it seems like Aguilar has a grip on how the process is supposed to work. Given a situation like this, it can seem like competency is fleeting, and I would hope that eventually we should strive for more than just competency, but let's just say some of those commentaries that also been coming out, I do believe it was Sheriff Wiles saying that, yeah, we should maybe have a higher bar, because if voters aren't willing to enforce it, basically, it'll fall to the lowest common denominator of requirement, essentially, that maybe there should be more. And again, no idea what that would look like personally, but I'd be in favor of at least exploring it. I don't know. Written test would be difficult. Or the idea of putting just more requirements, experience, so to speak, like all other jobs have. Like, seriously, imagine the head of a department anywhere that wouldn't have to have like basic experience requirements. Like, not necessarily saying that someone just, ran like, I graduated law school, passed the bar, I'm going out in for DA now. Like, sure, that's technically possible, but I don't think people would vote for that. But there's no other job of that kind of scope. Like, compare it with the private sector. Yeah, I know it's not exactly apples to apples, but consider it about the experience, the time, the training, the knowledge, know-how, etc. I'd throw all the words you want into there of what would actually be required for that kind of job, and then look for the actual requirements put forth in statute and realize that there are just not. This just doesn't line up. I just got to put it that way. In any case, we'll probably be talking about that a whole lot more. Again, still waiting on anything out of Austin on this. I think I like the way that, again, our guest from last hour, Luis Aguilar, retired district judge. Appreciate that. And what's coming out of Austin? I think that's the way I'm going to think about this for the moment here, because I am sure that there is going to be a lot of input given to the governor, and including my understanding, the idea that there are going to be a lot of calls being made to him, overtures potentially, because given now this is just going to be nigh unprecedented. I'm not going to say it's completely, because I'm sure there has been some circumstance or something near this that has happened previously where it's not just judges, but like DAs, potentially. Don't know that for sure, but I'm not willing to rule it out. But I assume there's going to be a lot of guideposts and guidance being given, whether accepted or not, who knows. Anyway, let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, we are taking the calls at this point during the program, so if you want to get on the line, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Addressing one comment here, Ion Grimm saying, doesn't Abbott have 8 days to fill the position? That was my understanding, which means that we are probably getting right up on it. Now, the question is if that's absolute calendar days, business days. I would assume it's calendar days, but we know what happens when we assume. And frankly, I don't know. It's entirely his court. So even if it goes to day 9, I doubt anyone will be drawing up a suit against that. Though I guess stranger things have happened before. Point is that we'll know about it when we know, and there has not been a peep out of Austin, so to speak, on this point yet. So we'll see. Anyway, get back to those phone lines now. We do have Raul on the Northeast with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. About qualifications. How about the qualifications for the presidency, huh? Just got to be 45, born in the United States, lived here the last 14 years. You could be a convicted felon and be the president of the United States, or just a reality TV star and failed businessman and be the president of the United States. That's really, really sad, but that's all we expect. We need to change that. That has to be changed. The January 6th Congressional Committee will be issuing criminal referrals against Donald Trump. How about that?
Yep,
and
potentially.
This is Speaker Pelosi's Christmas gift to the twice impeached, failed incumbent president who tried to take her out and other prominent Democrats, along with Hang Mike Putz. The committee will also be issuing its report this month. I really look forward to its findings. Now, about guns. Guns have affected El Paso. 23 people were killed by a Trump terrorist with an AK-47, a Russian assault weapon of war. And President Biden recently said he is determined to ban assault weapons. Good for him. I'm all with him. And he said this while he was speaking emotionally about the 19 kids and the 2 teachers killed at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, with a gunman using an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle. Now, on November 21st, a lady by the name of Kiana Mann, 44, was shot in the eye, allegedly by her 10-year-old son at her Milwaukee home, when she wouldn't buy him an expensive virtual reality headset. Shot his mom dead. Sad. Unbelievable. But reality in America, the country where no one is safe anywhere, anytime, because of all the guns in the hands of messed up, violent people. Now, with social media and the Russian troll farms and demagogic politicians whipping up white grievances, there has been an increasing threats of violence and violence directed by these politicians against their enemies, the left, the liberals, Democrats, who they call socialists, and then they go on they call them communists, and now they call them pedophiles and sex traffickers. In any case, there's nothing new about messed up kids and messed up people. So, and many times they come from messed up parents in messed up economic situations, and sometimes those parents were messed up and poor also. But the difference is all the guns in the population. Now, for example, as far as school shootings since 2009 in countries or in other countries in the world, Canada 2, France 2, Germany 1, Japan 0, Italy 0, United Kingdom 0. Total of 5 deaths among those countries since 2009. United States 288. Among the 64 high-income countries, the United States stands out for its high level of gun violence. We rank 8th out of the 64 for homicides by firearms. And homicide rates in the United States are 20 times greater than in the European Union as a whole. Now, these countries, as far as I know, don't have any more crazy people per capita than the United States. They probably are more homogeneous and probably less diverse in the United States, and they probably didn't fight a civil war either over slavery. But firearm injuries tend to be more frequent in places where people have easy access to firearms. And that's according to a 2018 study by the American Medical Association, JAMA. And just over a year ago, goofy Greg Abbott signed a law making it legal for anyone in Texas over the age of 21 to openly carry a gun in public without a permit or a license.
I got to tell you, with the old open carry thing, again, not a choice I'm going to make, but if someone's wanting to do it, frankly, I'd prefer it, and they don't have training, to be open carry so I can identify, okay, who is doing this and who might not really know what they're talking about, because sure, it's a personal choice to be made, and now within the law, as you were saying, but let's just say that of the people that I know and the training I've gotten and things like that, it's not the choice that I would make in any kind of sort, like, sure, being on like the range for a day here and it being, an accessibility thing or any of the competition stuff that happened around town, when I've attended those, yeah, that would be something I do in that kind of very, very limited circumstance. But just like walking around, yeah, again, they're right, but not the choice I'm going to be making here. We'll say I'm making more than a couple of judgments. Let's just put it that way. But the idea here that particularly, there is no decent and no good reason for a school shooting, but the example has also been brought up, including the very interesting pseudo article, because of the way they do it here, from the Daily Show, actually talking about Switzerland, in which they have a lot of firearms, and they do it in a very kind of regimented way. They have the same kind of, you have to do your, national service, let's put it that way, whether it be in some kind of military branch or other ways. They have that kind of concept there, because Switzerland has always been prepared for everyone else to attack Switzerland. But their gun culture is very interesting and different. They have, for use of it, very expectations on how it can be stored and placed, and ammunition and things like that within your home, but they're also very familiar with it and very willing to deal with it, and I would love to see it be more like that. Now, whether that can actually be formulated in law or not is another question, because that's almost just a cultural thing there. And it's very interesting you bring up the idea of diversity here, because more than a few of, particularly the Texas gun laws, particularly the open carry, because you got to remember that it wasn't even just that this most recent legislative session that the permitless carry, constitutional carry, however you want to put it here, but not requiring you to have passed any kind of qualifications except for basic legal ones in order to be able to do that. No card required, so to speak, was definitely something that happened in this most recent legislative session, the previous legislative session, let's put it that way at this point. But it was only in a few previous before that open carry of handguns was even allowed within Texas. And that law goes back to essentially the Civil War. You got to go back to, or just the aftermath of it, I should more correctly say. And the idea of not wanting people to be going around with guns on their hips because of, well, let's just call it diversity implications, or the idea of armed certain parts of the populace. So let me just say that the history of that, as much as we get into it, is a little bit fraught on its own here. But to the general idea of guns being the problem, I will actually agree with one limited comment here that let me see one point out here. Eric McDabb saying more guns out there, the more guns that will be misused. Let me amend it the way I'm going to agree to it specifically. They're saying that the more guns that are on the streets, so to speak here, the ones that are not in the hands of responsible gun owners. And I take responsible here in this case, mean those that are safely storing them, the ones that are taking care, and not the kind of people who out there that, well, however good meaning they may be, thinking like, I got a gun, therefore I'm good. That's like saying, I got a car. No, I didn't learn how to drive it. Why? Why does that matter? I own the car. I'm a car driver now. Like, that's the same kind of analogy I take here. So anyone who was seriously considering having it, I would 100% recommend you get more training. Go ahead and do the LTC, because if you're at all thinking about the need for personal defense or protection, any of those kind of things, having the actual designation coming from the governments, the state of Texas in this case, it's definitely going to be a better idea. But those are the people that I'm not that level of concerned about having them. Gun nuts, as it's sometimes put here, and yet it's never the guy that has dozens of guns that really ends up becoming the issue here. Sure, they may be very vocal online, but in those incidents we're talking about, the 200 some odd, more than that, not really pinpointing those sets of individuals as part of it here. It's the one-offs. It's the lone wolves. It's the, kind of modern issue whenever it comes to the idea of preventing terrorism, is that, sure, you can track down an organization, you can roll up its contacts, its sources, its moles, etc. But if it's just one random dude out there doing something without any connection to anyone else, and that has no infrastructure, no purchase history, those kind of things, makes it, in just modern terroristic theory and of law enforcement that way, awful to try to figure out how to deal with it. Because how do you find someone who has put out no indications of anything? And that's the real issue we're looking at here, and why, as much as saying, it's just only a mental health issue, it falls a little bit flat for me. Because the idea of only looking at mental health and not actually about the accessibility of guns, frankly, I can find myself increasingly in favor of the idea of waiting periods. I know that's supremely unpopular with people in the gun community, and they're probably going to come with me on this one, but I got to say, the idea of someone saying, I need a gun tomorrow, raises a hell of a lot more alarms than pretty much any other category we're talking about here. So I would be in favor of that idea of it, but that's a difficult conversation to have, and one that often gets muddy whenever we get down to the idea of just ban them all and be done with it, because that's where you see the hardening of these lines. And so the lack of ability to even have that level of discussion with it, and I do mean both sides on this, there's a lot of intransigence out there, a lot of inability to budge and just say, nope, our dogma is going to do it. That, I think, frankly, is reflected in more or less the national legislature whenever we get to these drawn battle lines, these unshifting abilities to compromise still being the four-letter word that it is here. So that's a long way to say there that I disagree with you, but there might be more points of agreement than you realize if we're actually willing to discuss it further there. Anyway, let's actually, and if you're talking to me, accuse me of double talk for talking about what I want here. Okay, let me just put it out this way. If you're thinking that I'm talking on behalf of anyone besides myself, you got me messed up out there, dude. Anyways, thanks for the point in the call for what it's worth. Let's go ahead and take that next break right now. We are going to, and you're calling me conspiracy theorist for pointing out verifiable statements out there. Good luck, my dude. Anyway, got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, more calls, more comments, more of everything we do on the line here. So let's go ahead and take that. And again, if you want to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, so 5876. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A serious crash blocking 2 left lanes, I-10 eastbound at Hawkins Boulevard. There's a backup to before Piedras. 30-minute delays, Piedras to Hawkins, eastbound 10. Stop and go on Global Reach southbound from the Spur down to Montana Avenue. 34-minute delays. Eastbound on Liberty Expressway from the Gateway to the Loop, it's a 15-minute delay. And northbound Zaragoza is slowed due to a crash at Rich Beam. Harry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Enter the Craftsman Days Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes sponsored by Lowe's for a chance to win Craftsman products valued at over $10,000. No purchase necessary. Ends 12/31. Residents of 50 USDC, 18 or older, and age of majority, and have a Lowe's.com account. Void where prohibited. See rules at Lowe'sUltimateGarage.com for entry instructions, odds, prices, etc. Sponsor Lowe's.
Every week, hundreds of thousands of fans download the popular Stuff They Don't Want You to Know podcast to get to the bottom of popular culture's biggest myths. And now, the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know book separates conspiracy fact from conspiracy theory, from biological testing to our endless fascination with the Kennedy assassination. This holiday season, give the gift that explains the unexplainable. The Stuff They Don't Want You to Know book. Available now. Order at StuffYouShouldReadBooks.com or wherever you buy your books.
New on Curiosity Stream. Across the globe, coral reefs are dying, but not without a fight. Scientists discover a new heat-resistant super reef. What's its secret we can use to save the rest? It's breakthrough reefs of hope. And humanity's future, a thriving multi-planet species, or will AI run the show? See how today's choices in technology and science may seal our fate on 10 Seconds to the Future. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. And for a limited time, get 40% off our annual plan. That's just $1 a month. Visit CuriosityStream.com.
Celebrate the season with 50% off everything at your nearest Banana Republic factory store. Discover a world of holiday magic with gifts to inspire everyone on your list, starting at $24.99, only at Banana Republic Factory.
Hey, listener. Welcome to Limu's Karaoke Lounge, where Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, and the music never stops. Hit it.
There's an emu with a full-time job. His partner's Doug, but Limu's the heartthrob. Grubs and worms, that's what Limu eats. Gotta fuel up to save you money and hit the streets.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Celebrate the season with 50% off everything at your nearest Banana Republic factory store. Discover a world of holiday magic with gifts to inspire everyone on your list, starting at $24.99, only at Banana Republic Factory.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, being on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're getting into here today, and a lot of conversations going on. A few things locally we're trying to focus on anyway, but I do have those phone lines open. Well, correct myself. They are available. You're able to call in, but the lines are full up at the moment. So just to make sure you got the number handy, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot more to get here. And again, make sure when we're talking about points here, if you're trying to address me specifically, that you're actually talking about what I said and not what you're conflating someone else says. In case it's at all unclear, yeah, not really going to be talking about stuff that's being focused on with Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, or Newsmax. We focus on the local things here, but you want to bring it up and be more specific with it. I'm not unread on the other things, such as, well, it's always fun to be called a conspiracy theorist for using direct quotes from people, but particularly if you're then going to put words in my mouth here, saying that I think Dianne Feinstein is part of a communist plot to take guns and subjugate truly out of Alex Jones echo chamber stuff here. Point to any time I called Dianne Feinstein a communist, and you're going to find yourself wanting, or something you fabricated, which good luck on that here, because actually within communist ideology, or at the very least the Marxism it's based upon, the idea was that the workers should never give up their arms. I mean, there's a phrase out there that you go far enough left, you get your guns back. That is not common parlance kind of thing here, but yeah, there's anything. I've kind of railed against the idea of using communism as a shorthand for bad. Like, just call it bad, or totalitarian, if that's what you really want to get at, because you're not really talking about the economic aspect of it, but rather the fact of supreme control happening within any centralized authority. And yeah, that was definitely exemplified during like the Soviet Union, but really the idea of there being inherent with that process, or it's a shorthand, like just say what you mean, don't have to couch it in anything. Anyway, let's get back to those phone lines here right now. And again, if you're going to be anything about it, just make sure you're actually quoting me if you're responding to me. Anyway, let's get back to those phone lines now. We do have James Pinato on the west side with us here right now. James, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me. And Trump derangement syndrome, hell of a drug, I must say.
Yeah, I used to have feelings about it, but there's too many examples in front of my face. Anyway, what's on your mind?
Yeah, it's impressive how far into years later it continues to press. But anyway, no, I'm calling because I want to kind of redirect the conversation for a moment to the runoff election.
Oh, absolutely, please.
Just kind of sad how few people are getting out to vote. And, there's a big difference with all of the candidates and all of the three races that I'm aware of. The two on the west side, pretty stark choice there. And then the one on the far east side, District 6, is the one that I kind of wanted to bring some attention to, just because, it's been a lot of, I think, misdirection and like shameless attacks against the incumbent, Claudia Rodriguez. And I'm speaking for myself and nobody else here.
Sure.
But just kind of surprised to see that the El Paso Libertarian Party has endorsed a career politician who has, advocated for a woke agenda several times in the past, and has raised taxes 12 times while he served on the El Paso Community College Board. So I don't really understand the Libertarian Party's endorsement on this. I'm curious about their endorsement process. But as a libertarian, who's not in the Libertarian Party, I'm also kind of ashamed by the Democrat Party's effect on local politics, because, they come out, very much in favor of CO bonds, regardless of how much they would raise property taxes. They don't seem to think that voters deserve to have a say on if they want to pay more in taxes. And yet they've decided to champion Art Fierro, who says that he'll always be against CO bonds, and we're supposed to believe that he thinks property taxes are a big issue, when he himself raised the property tax rate for the community college 46% and a quarter. People are saying that Claudia Rodriguez went partisan. She's never come out partisan that I could see, and she was standing up for El Paso when the mayor of El Paso was wanting to not embarrass Beto, who was running for governor at the time, and had told city council that the White House and Veronica Escobar do not want him, had asked him not to declare a disaster emergency. So the mayor put those loyalty ties to these politicians ahead of El Paso taxpayers. And the biggest point that I want to drive home is that we have an important choice in District 6. Do we want to elect a city council representative that's going to get, who's going to want to spend our scarce resources because we are taxed so much? And is he going to want to? He's going to want to spend it on environmental causes, LGBTQ causes, pro-choice causes. All these things are state level issues and above federal issues. We don't have a lot of money to spare. The constituents are very much concerned all over El Paso with getting the potholes fixed. We have drainage problems to tackle. People are not happy with the weeds, the public safety, and I'm pretty concerned that Art Fierro, if he's elected, mark my words, he's going to get El Paso into spending money on really just irrelevant garbage that we do not need to be spending money on. And so I just wanted to put that out there, and I think it's just a shame that that people are attacking somebody who's already shown a proven record of not raising the property tax rate, has voted consistently against CO bonds, she spoke out boldly against the UMC CO bond, and she's never changed her position on, we should not take any more money to build an arena, and she does want to preserve the buildings in Duranguito. So District 6 voters, please do get out and vote and do your research. One city council representative is going to be much better for the community than the other. So please get out and vote.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, the vote, again, my appeal here, and I'm not going to try to get on the soapbox too much. We've got about 1.3% of the actual voting public eligible for these elections having gone out so far. So if anytime your vote would count for more of a percentage of the actual vote turnout than just about any other time would be definitely right now. You're going to be a definable percentage if you head out and vote there. So please do. Again, districts 1, 8, and 6, kind of going in order of how they kind of go across town, because 1 and 8 are somehow the west side ones, kind of as you were referencing here. I'm not sure who numbered these, but I'm not sure I like the way that they're laid out, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But yeah, then 6, that kind of right next to the furthest east portions of the not the county, but the city, that is, as it starts getting out towards the county, kind of on the inside of the Loop 375 near Joe Battle area, if I'm remembering my map correctly. So significant ones here. I would have to say some of the conversations I'm aware of about why there is essentially partisanship being talked about here, and this isn't something we've really delved into. Yeah, we're going to be doing that more as we get closer to the actual election day itself, but that there's conversations about the, I think, further media appearances, and particularly in the, I guess, the partisan nature of the media that I think you're referring to Claudia Lizette Rodriguez there in District 6, about where she has appeared on air, has been at least part of the conversations that I've been aware of going on about why there are essentially these accusations of partisanship being put forth.
Yeah, well, just the mayor, and I often do respect and appreciate the mayor when he does certain things. He's had some really great vetoes and tie-break votes. So I don't think he's a horrible mayor. I think he more often than not does the right thing for El Paso and has a good, he has a good finger on the pulse of what the community is concerned about, which is like kind of stress about taxes and like where our money is going. But I think in this thing, he lied to either in city council or he lied to the media thereafter. And when Claudia Rodriguez goes to the press, I think she was standing up for El Paso taxpayers, not even taking a position on border security or immigration laws, just saying that like the federal government has been negligent in tackling this situation. They've not properly addressed it after several years of having the time to do something about it. The mayor should be putting pressure on the congresswoman to get the Department of Homeland Security into, not making this crisis. Like, they're putting El Paso taxpayers on the hook for paying for all this stuff. And they're criticizing the Lone Star program, Operation Lone Star, while they do the same thing. And they're playing partisan politics, which is not helping our overtaxed community get our needs addressed. And so I thought he was standing up for the community and not even weighing into that immigration debate, just saying, and people have said that if you go to Fox News or the New York Post, they've said those programs are alt-right. And to me, that's disgusting, because alt-right, as defined by the people who coined that term, that is white ethno-nationalism. And these people don't care about the truth. They just fling caustic words, out there into social media, hoping that it'll stick. It's just the equivalent of them calling everyone Nazis who disagrees with them. It's very low key, low base. So.
I get what you're saying there. And yeah, anytime there's the style of the naming over substances of the actual arguments, I think that bears out, even if it might be frustrating in the long run here. But, well, thanks for talking about these races. I mean, I've been mentioning them. It encourage people to go out and to vote here. Probably have more coming up as we get towards some of those later holidays coming up on these races. But do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you, Andrew.
And with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Well, we're due, actually, here. But again, get me on one of these soapboxes. We're hitting on a couple of them today. I'm definitely going to talk about it. So let's go ahead and take that break right now. Coming out of this break, more calls on the line, more focus on the local issues. So again, if you want to get on the line, if you can squeeze in, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. Police officials say a 51-year-old man died after a shooting at the Desert Lodge Motel in Las Cruces yesterday afternoon. The shooting happened at a motel located at 1900 West Picacho Avenue at about 4 in the afternoon. Then at 3 this morning, El Paso police responded to a stabbing in Northeast El Paso. Police say a 30-year-old woman was stabbed on the 8600 block of Dyer, just across the street from Colonia Motor Hotel. But on a good note, the weekend of December 3rd brought more than 25,000 people to the plaza downtown, according to the Winterfest coordinator, Diana Cepeda. Winterfest began on November 18th and it ends on January 1st. Winterfest is an El Paso tradition that has been running for more than 30 years, and the city tries to add and expand to it every year. This year, food vendors are operating out of gingerbread house fronts, and there are igloos. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Serious crash blocking multiple lanes. I-10 eastbound at Hawkins is causing huge delays through 2 left lanes are blocked. There's a 35-minute delay back to Cotton. Traffic is stopped on northbound Zaragoza from Joe Battle all the way up to Rich Beam after a crash at Rich Beam and Zaragoza. Southbound Global Reach Expressway down to Montana, 35-minute delays, and 54 Patriot northbound at Fred Wilson. Stalled vehicle blocking the right lane. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. After another warm and somewhat windy day, we will see a much quieter night. However, we start off our Wednesday with some areas of patchy fog again before 9 a.m. Then after lunchtime, we'll start to see those showers and thunderstorms rolling in, along with a cold front to bring cooler air. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Enter the Craftsman Days Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes sponsored by Lowe's for a chance to win Craftsman products valued at over $10,000. No purchase necessary. Ends 12/31. Residents of 50 USDC, 18 or older, and age of majority, and have a Lowe's.com account. Void where prohibited. See rules at Lowe'sUltimateGarage.com for entry instructions, odds, prices, etc. Sponsor Lowe's.
Your Social Security disability claim has been denied. In this stressful situation, you aren't alone. John Sipes, attorney at law, can help. If you're between 55 and 65 years old, can no longer work, and have been denied disability benefits by the Social Security Administration, or need help applying, contact John Sipes. Even if you're under 55 and a serious mental or physical impairment prevents you from working, John Sipes is here for you. Get started at ElPasoDisabilityLawyer.com. That's ElPasoDisabilityLawyer.com.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Any first responder will tell you never try to beat a train. After braking, it can take a mile for a train to completely stop. A mile. That's also how far a car can be dragged when a train hits it. So when you come to a rail crossing, stop, because trains can't. Paid for by NHTSA.
Enter the Craftsman Days Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes sponsored by Lowe's for a chance to win Craftsman products valued at over $10,000. No purchase necessary. Ends 12/31. Residents of 50 USDC, 18 or older, and age of majority, and have a Lowe's.com account. Void where prohibited. See rules at Lowe'sUltimateGarage.com for entry instructions, odds, prices, etc. Sponsor Lowe's. This report is sponsored by Lowe's.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Oh, we got so much to get into there. At Talk El Paso, Andrew J. Polk, the list there. And a lot of comments coming in, including a lot. We appreciate those likes and reacts. I mean, a lot of people commenting there, but if you can't, don't worry. You're not being missed or anything. But just want to thank those taking the time to. Rocco Jimenez, Ambra Banda, Austin Redfern, Matt Olson, Stephen Christopher, Bernadette Banda Cole, Ion Grimm, Robbie Flores, Robert Haynes, Monica Cervantes, and Ida Beza Gardner. I don't think that's... always, what's going on here are all the ones that are commenting or liking. But again, just if you're taking the time to appreciate it, you don't have to. So also, while we have that phone line open full up, and we'll see what we can get to before the end of the show here, just take it down. That number for future reference, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And being accused of being psychic, that's a new one for me. But anyway, it's a lot of very interesting comments going on there. Anyway, let's get to those calls right now. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I'd like to talk about the Yvonne Rosales case.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'd like to preface that by reminding people of a guy by the name of William F. Buckley, Jr., who ran to be mayor of New York City on a conservative ticket. And, of course, no one thought he was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
When he ran, his poll numbers kept going up and up and up. And finally, a newspaper reporter asked him, Mr. Buckley, if you happen to win in the mayor race for New York City, what's the first thing you would do? And he said, I would demand a recount. You know, it sort of reminds me of Yvonne Rosales not really getting serious about her job. And I'm wondering, perhaps you know this, or I believe there's another Andrew who calls in who has a lot of law experience. Maybe he could answer this too.
Mm-hmm.
In running as a candidate for a particular office, now whether you're appointed or elected, I believe the same thing would apply. Does a person have to commit in writing that if I am elected, I will serve? Or is it just I'm running and it's supposed that this person is going to serve? But there's nothing that I can find, and I don't have access to all the media, but is there anything that says this person, if chosen, will be required to serve?
That's actually a pretty decent question, one that I'm not well schooled on. The only one I can really think about, and it didn't quite reach this level, but, well, it could have. The recent circumstance we had in that actually, I believe it was District 1 race, if I'm not mistaken, that the crowded one on the ballot most recently, there was a candidate that had dropped out saying, I no longer am seeking this office, but ended up getting more than other candidates actual votes being cast in his name. Freddie Clay-Avalos, who I'm referring to there, he had pulled himself out before election day or even early voting had begun, but due to the circumstances of ballot printing and those kind of things, he was still on there. So like it had already been sent out to say, the mail-in ballots, those kind of things, so it couldn't be changed at the end. But I do know that he says if, elected, I will not. There's a phrase that comes to mind. If elected, I will not serve, those kind of things. So I'm honestly not sure. I mean, there may be some vagaries of different like local, state, national requirements in different localities, but I guess usually if people are on the ballot, they intend to hold the office, particularly those who actually have the higher likelihood of winning. So, but honestly, that's almost an existential question you're bringing up there.
Yeah. There are parties like the Communist Party and others, they know that they're not going to win. But there's always a possibility, we don't know the future, that something could happen and that person could win. And so is that person committed in writing to serve if elected? And, I just don't know. I just thought I'd throw it out there for the lawyers in the audience and they can tell us.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Let me, and also I finally found that quote here and why I like it. It's when William Tecumseh Sherman, also famous for Sherman's March to the Sea, if nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve here, which is an interesting one. But yeah, that's a very good question. Usually not completely stumped in these circumstances, but yeah, I'll have to do some research on that one.
Okay, thanks a lot, Andrew.
Sure thing. Thanks a lot there. I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, trying to get to a couple more calls here, see what we can squeeze in. Anyway, let's get to, we got Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right, hot diggity dog. So much wonderful news today. You can't get over it. The biggest thing is the Donnie Dotard Doofus Trump organization found guilty of all kinds of financial hanky-panky. That's number one. Number two, got this great thing going on in Georgia. The polls closed 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. If you know who already won, please don't tell me. I want to find that out myself.
Okay.
Now, having said that, I've mentioned this to you and everybody else out there in the Southwest border region, right? Evil happens behind closed doors in dark rooms, right? Now, having said that, I want to segue right into this. This executive privilege stuff, I don't care where it's from the federal, state, whatever. We got to get rid of that. I can't get over in my life that some president, any president, I don't care, Democrat, Independent, Republican, is getting some kind of information that is so outrageous, so egregious. And where's Eric, by the way? Egregious Eric. Nevertheless, the point is, whatever they're saying to him that is so unbelievably outrageous that it cannot be said outside of the boundaries of the Oval Office is unbelievable to me. They need to get rid of this executive privilege. And if there is that kind of a situation, then there has to be a group of reasonable, honorable people who sit there and listen to this and say, yeah, you could say this. Yeah, you could say that. No, don't say that. Whatever. But this executive privilege is too much of a thing with people a terrible can hide behind. That's my comment right there out of the box.
The idea that certain things have, legal encumbrance on it's kind of an interesting situation involving the executive branch in this country. I mean, have been laws and acts passed that there's all the documentation. There's a reason that you haven't seen technically, like in the Oval Office, set up like a computer, like anyone's office. You think, where's the computer go? But there hasn't been one there because of the vagaries of how electronic records are kept. There's a reason most stuff is still printed out because there are legal requirements behind it. And yet a lot of what is discussed may end up being secret or not available. It's just this kind of interesting back and forth with how it goes there. But I will say this, what actually brings to mind more for me is the whole idea of not even just executive privilege, but executive power. That there has been, and this has been, of course, charted over numerous administrations here and both sides of the political aisle. Essentially, in the reading of the Constitution as it was, the checks and balances weren't there just in place to keep powers between the different branches of government. They were also there in place to keep the fidelity of them. And the idea was that, well, no individual would want to give up their power to anyone else. But again, the Founding Fathers, as good of a framework as they may have put forth, super didn't consider and pretty immediately realized that they didn't consider political parties here and the idea of agreements being made between branches of the parties in control of them here. So there's been a lot of power subsumed into the executive, the office of the presidency, because of, executive privilege is kind of an example, but more like signing statement, line item vetoes. There's a whole slew of phrases that apply to it here. And that has happened, by my reasoning, largely because it's hard to get things through Congress. It's difficult, it's arduous, it's not fast moving, it's not designed to be. But the idea of wanting to take quick action, be decisive, is attractive in its own way. But unfortunately, I think it's led to this idea of, historical reading way before my time here, but some of the history I've read is that even before, as recently as Kennedy, that Washington, D.C. was not exactly, there was a lot of power there, obviously, but not exactly considered as such here. It was not exactly a backwater, but that it was not the hot spot and way too expensive housing prices that it is now, of people constantly trying to move there because, sure, things got done there, but it was largely more by rote and not these kind of leaps and starts and jumps that we keep seeing these days. And I can certainly put that as primarily because of the concentration of power that is there and how much now gets put into the office of the presidency and the power that it holds.
Well, no, everything you just said, it's right spot on. But I always go back to the Tricky Dick and Nixon days with the tapes and the 18-minute gap with a bunch of phony baloney stuff. Whatever was erased on that 18 minutes must have been so horrendous that no one in the world could have ever possibly heard that. Otherwise, there would have been such horrendous outcry throughout the United States of America. That's why, again, I'm saying they got to do something with this executive privilege stuff and knock this out of the box because too many hotshot political types are hiding behind that, just like the current Donnie Dotard doofus dude. Anyway, that's all I want to say. Have a good day. Keep me on the phone, please.
Sure thing. We'll put you on hold there. So thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
All right, I think we have time for one more quick one here. We do have Tom on Otero County. Tom, we got about a minute or two here.
Okay. How you doing there, Andrew?
Doing all right there. What's your on your mind, briefly?
Well, I just wanted to ease the mind of that previous caller about constitutional carry in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
We've had it here in New Mexico since January 1912.
Yep.
And that was when New Mexico became a state.
Yep,
So,
that is absolutely correct.
Maybe, he won't freak out, think the world's coming to an end or anything. It hasn't been a problem. As long as you prosecute criminals, all those problems are just going to go away. But unfortunately, they don't want to prosecute criminals anymore in this country.
I mean, it is, that's a further point to get into here. And one of the reasons I think that this whole DA race conversation is very important here, particularly since cases have been lacking, not affecting all in New Mexico there as much, but I mean, I'm sure conversations still go on to the same tenor there. But yeah, it's been interesting. One of the analyses in lead up to, of course, this the previous legislative session with its change to the constitutional carry / open carry, permitless carry, was that Texas was catching up into New Mexico in that way because, yeah, in some ways, New Mexico had more, okay, I'm using liberal in the general permissive sense of it had more gun laws that allow for more liberal application of your rights, so to speak.
Well, I would call constitutional rights liberal, but it's never really been a problem in New Mexico. If you're a responsible citizen, you're not going to abuse a firearm any more than you will an automobile. It's just a matter of making people responsible citizens.
And I think that's one of the more existential topics about it for our modern day and age here. So we've got to take that break. Thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right, appreciate it. All right, and with that, got to take that break. Coming out of this, Toby, we got coming up for you rest of the week here and some of those programming notes. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the I-10 eastbound at Hawkins, 2 left lanes are still blocked due to a crash. Traffic is stopped through the downtown area. 35-minute delays from Mesa all the way to Hawkins. Northbound Zaragoza still slow with 10-minute delays. Mostly stopped traffic northbound from the Loop to Rich Beam. Joe Battle southbound after Bob Hope an injury accident. And Liberty Expressway is slow eastbound from the Gateway to the Loop. 15-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Enter the Craftsman Days Ultimate Garage Sweepstakes sponsored by Lowe's for a chance to win Craftsman products valued at over $10,000. No purchase necessary. Ends 12/31. Residents of 50 USDC, 18 or older, in age of majority, and have a Lowe's.com account. Void where prohibited. See rules at Lowe'sUltimateGarage.com for entry instructions, odds, prices, etc. Sponsor Lowe's.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Education doesn't just take place in the classroom. There are many ways for children of all ages to learn about sustainability and environmental education at home. Visit iHeartRadio.com/Earth for a list of resources, activity guides, and toolkits that are educational and fun for the whole family. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Doniphan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the one and only margarita from the Cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Doniphan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
El Pasoans Fighting Hunger and iHeartRadio have teamed up again to bring back the Buy the Box campaign this year to help those in need in our community this holiday season and beyond. Please consider donating during this most generous time of the year with your organization to Buy the Box. You'll not only be helping your neighbors right in our community to fight hunger, but you'll also be able to boost your business with a complimentary iHeartRadio advertising campaign. For details and to learn more, go to elpasoansfightinghunger.org. That's elpasoansfightinghunger.org/BUY the box.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We've gotten into quite a lot today, and a couple of things I want to mention that we got coming up for you here. Of course, more visiting with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Talk about some of those big stories going on for the day and for the time we got. Also, a lot more coming up about some of the situations involving nonprofit communities, not even just in the way we've been talking about them lately, but basic needs for El Pasoans and beyond, all those living in the region that have serious issues here. And, well, talking with the El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank. Very apropos that one spot just went by during the break there, actually, because we're delving into that, what some of the situations are. That'll be coming up for our replacement show on Friday for you, because, again, Thursday will be our free-for-all show for the week here, where we're doing the open lines throughout both hours of the program here. So if you weren't able to get on today or any of the other days, don't worry, you'll get your chance Thursday coming up for you here. So a lot more to look forward to here on the program. So with that, out of time here for this program. So I want to, again, thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in any way, shape, or form, even if you're just taking these conversations into your own life and keeping them going. Like, don't let it stop with you. Keep it going. Make sure that you're actually talking about these things in your real life, is the phrase I want to use there. But I mean, this is real life too. We're talking about the real things that affect us here. Just don't let it stop. Keep it going, keep it moving, and keep focusing on what's important to you, because that's, I think, the only way existentially we're going to make our way through this, because just shouting at each other and not having anything done and actually having discussions, let me make that point clear as well, ain't going to serve us that well. Anyway, with that, end of the show today. So until we are back with you live, as we are every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., slight modification this week, but back with you again tomorrow. In the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the I-10 eastbound at Hawkins, 2 left lanes are still blocked due to a crash. Traffic is stopped through the downtown area. 35-minute delays from Mesa all the way to Hawkins. Northbound Zaragoza is still slow with 10-minute delays. Mostly stopped traffic northbound from the Loop to Rich Beam. Joe Battle southbound after Bob Hope at injury accident. And Liberty Expressway is slow eastbound from the Gateway to the Loop. 15-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Want to get a $300 Visa card from your Medicare plan? At WellCare, our Medicare Advantage plans are simplified so you can enjoy all the great benefits you care about most, like our WellCare Flex Card, a preloaded debit card that gives you up to $300 to pay for extra dental, vision, or hearing expenses not covered by your plan, like hearing aids, dentures, prescription glasses, copays, and more. It's just one more way WellCare is improving every aspect of Medicare to give you access to the top-tier benefits you want most, plus a little extra. To learn more about WellCare, visit wellcarefornm.com today. That's wellcarefornm.com to enroll today. WellCare, it's Medicare done well. Benefits vary by plan. WellCare is the Medicare brand for Centene Corporation, an HMO, PPO, PFFS, PDP plan with a Medicare contract, and is an approved Part D sponsor. Our DSNP plans have a contract with the state Medicaid program. Enrollment in our plans depends on contract renewal.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.